They thought he had won everything. Grant Sterling walked out of that courtroom with a smirk that could cut glass, clutching the divorce papers like a trophy. He had taken his wife's house, her savings, and her dignity, leaving her with absolutely nothing but the clothes on her back. He toasted to his victory with $5,000 champagne, laughing about how easy it was to destroy the woman who loved him. But he forgot one thing. He never actually checked who her father was. And by the time the old man in the faded coat walked into the boardroom, it was already too late for Grant to run. This is the story of a man who thought he was a king until he met the emperor. The sound of crystal flutes clinking together rang out like a bell tolling for a funeral, though for Grant Sterling it was the sound of liberation. "To freedom," Grant declared, his voice booming across the private VIP booth of Le Bernardin in Manhattan. He raised his glass of Dom Perignon high, the golden liquid catching the dim, ambient light of the restaurant. "And to the best damn lawyer in New York City." Beside him, Jessica, his attorney, and for the last 6 months, his mistress, smiled that sharp, predatory smile that had first attracted him to her. She leaned in, brushing a stray lock of blonde hair behind her ear. "It wasn't hard, Grant. Lydia didn't even fight. It was like taking candy from a baby. A very sad, pathetic baby." The table erupted in laughter. Grant's business partners, a collection of men in tailored suits who measured their worth by the horsepower of their cars and the youth of their wives, joined in the mockery. "She really signed the prenup waiver?" asked Tom, Grant's CFO at Sterling Dynamics. "I thought for sure she'd claim duress. You left her with—" "What? The Honda?" "The 2018 Honda," Grant corrected, taking a smug sip of champagne. "And her personal effects. I kept the brownstone in Brooklyn, the house in the Hamptons, the portfolio, and the dog. Actually, I don't even like the dog. I just took it because I knew it would break her heart." "You are cold, Sterling," Tom laughed, shaking his head. "Ice cold. It's business, Tom. Marriage is just a long-term contract, and when the terms no longer suit you, you liquidate the asset." Grant sat back, loosening his tie. He felt invincible. Today, the judge had finalized the divorce decree. Lydia had sat there in the courtroom, wearing that same grey wool cardigan she always wore, looking at her hands. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't cried. She had just signed where they told her to sign and walked out. It was almost insulting how easy it had been. When he had married Lydia Halloway 5 years ago, she was a quiet, unassuming graphic designer he met at a charity gala. She was pretty in a modest way, safe and supportive, exactly what he needed while he was building Sterling Dynamics from a mid-tier logistics firm into a shipping empire. She cooked his meals, ironed his shirts, and listened to his rants about supply chains and unions. But now Sterling Dynamics was valued at $80 million. Grant was being profiled in Forbes. He needed a wife who looked the part, someone like Jessica, who wore Prada and knew how to cut a man down in a boardroom. Lydia was an anchor dragging him down. She was too simple, too plain. Her father was some retired mechanic living in a trailer in rural Pennsylvania. She didn't fit his new life. "So," Jessica purred, sliding her hand onto his knee under the table, "what's the next move, now that the dead weight is gone?" "Now," Grant said, his eyes gleaming, "we secure the merger with Blackwood Enterprises. Once I sign that deal next week, the stock price will triple. I'll be untouchable." "Blackwood?" Tom looked nervous. "You sure about that, Grant? No one even knows who owns Blackwood. They're a ghost corporation. They buy up companies and strip them for parts." "They won't strip us," Grant said arrogantly. "They need our logistics network. I'm meeting their representative, a Mr. Arthur, on Friday. I'll charm him, sign the deal, and then, well, then I buy a yacht, and we spend the summer in Monaco." The waiter arrived to refill their glasses. Grant didn't even look at the man. He was too busy scrolling through his phone, looking at the text messages Lydia had sent him earlier that day. "Grant, please, I don't care about the money. Just let me have the photo albums. They have pictures of my mum." He hadn't replied. In fact, he had instructed his assistant to burn the albums. It wasn't about the pictures. It was about power. It was about showing her that he controlled her reality. "Check this out," Grant said, showing the phone to Jessica. "She's begging for photos." Jessica laughed, a cruel, tinkling sound. Pathetic. Maybe if she had spent less time looking at photos and more time at the gym, you wouldn't have looked elsewhere. "Exactly," Grant said, pocketing the phone. "She was a stepping stone, and you don't carry the stepping stone with you when you reach the summit." Just then, his phone buzzed again. It wasn't a text. It was a notification from his bank. A large transfer had been flagged. Grant frowned. "That's odd." "What?" Jessica asked. "Just a glitch. My personal account shows a 0 balance." He chuckled, though a bead of sweat formed on his hairline. "Probably just the transfer to the offshore, holding engaging. I told the accountant to move the liquidity so Lydia couldn't try to claim alimony later." "Smart," Jessica said. "Hide it where the sun doesn't shine." "Mr. Sterling." Grant looked up. The waiter, a young man with a polite demeanor, was holding a silver tray with a white envelope on it. "What is this? The bill? Put it on my corporate card." Grant waved his hand dismissively. "No, sir," the waiter said, his voice steady. "A gentleman at the bar asked me to deliver this to you. He said it's a congratulatory gift regarding your divorce." Grant raised an eyebrow. He looked toward the bar, but the shadows were deep, and he couldn't make out anyone specific. A fan, perhaps? Or a competitor conceding defeat? He snatched the envelope and tore it open. Inside was a single playing card. The King of Hearts. But the face of the king had been scratched out with a black marker, and across the bottom, written in elegant, old-fashioned cursive, were 3 words. "The debt comes due." "What the hell is this?" Grant muttered, flipping the card over. "Nothing." "Someone's idea of a joke," Tom said nervously. "Maybe Lydia's brother. Doesn't she have a brother?" "She has no one," Grant scoffed, tossing the card onto the table amongst the half-eaten oysters. "Her mother is dead, and her father is a recluse who hasn't left his porch in 10 years. She's alone. That's why I picked her." He stood up, buttoning his jacket. "Let's go. This place is getting stale. I want to go to the club. I feel like celebrating." But as they walked out of the restaurant, stepping into the cool New York night, Grant couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on him. He glanced at the reflection in the tinted window of his waiting limousine. For a split second, he thought he saw an old, battered pickup truck parked across the street, a Ford F-150, rusted and ancient, wildly out of place amongst the Bentleys and Porsches of Manhattan. He blinked, and when he looked again, it was gone. "You okay, babe?" Jessica asked, sliding her arm through his. "Fine," Grant snapped, more harshly than he intended. "Just thought I saw a ghost." He got into the limo, telling himself he was being paranoid. He had won. The judge had banged the gavel. The papers were signed. Lydia was history. Nothing could stop him now. 3 days later, Lydia Halloway sat on a plastic chair in a laundromat in Queens. She watched her clothes tumble in the dryer, her grey cardigans, her sensible jeans, the few blouses she had managed to pack before Grant's security guards escorted her out of the mansion. She looked tired. Dark circles bruised the skin under her eyes, and her hands were dry and cracked. She held a styrofoam cup of lukewarm coffee, staring at the swirling colours of the laundry. "Excuse me, miss?" Lydia jumped. She looked up to see an older woman, maybe in her 60s, holding a basket. "You dropped this?" The woman held out a small velvet pouch. Lydia touched her neck instinctively. It was the locket her mother had given her before she passed away. The only thing Grant hadn't managed to appraise and keep. "Oh, thank you," Lydia breathed, taking it. "Thank you so much. I can't lose this." "Rough week?" the woman asked kindly. Lydia let out a dry, hollow laugh. "You could say that. My husband, ex-husband, he took everything. The house, the money. He even told the judge I was mentally unstable, so I couldn't get spousal support." "That's terrible," the woman said, shaking her head. "Men like that. They think they are gods, but they forget that every tower falls eventually." "He won't fall," Lydia whispered, clutching the locket. "He's too powerful. He knows everyone. Judges, politicians, bankers. I'm just nobody." "Nobody is ever truly nobody," the woman said softly. She patted Lydia's shoulder and walked away. Lydia sighed. She checked her phone. It was a prepaid burner she had bought at a gas station because Grant had cancelled her contract. There was one missed call. It wasn't from a lawyer. It wasn't from a friend. It was from Dad. Lydia stared at the screen. She hadn't spoken to her father, Arthur, in nearly 2 years. Grant had forbidden it. He said Arthur was low class, an embarrassment. He said having a father who worked with his hands and smelled of engine oil would hurt Grant's image with the board of directors. Lydia, desperate to please her husband, had slowly cut ties. She had stopped visiting, stopped calling. She felt a wave of shame so hot it made her dizzy. She pressed the call back button. It rang twice. "Liddy?" The voice was gravelly, deep and familiar. It sounded like home. "Daddy," Lydia choked out, tears instantly spilling over. "Daddy, I'm so sorry." "Hush now," Arthur said. His voice wasn't angry. It was calm, unnervingly calm. "I heard." "You heard?" "News travels, even to Pennsylvania," Arthur said. "He put you out on the street, didn't he?" "I have a motel room," Lydia lied. She was actually sleeping in her car. "I'm okay, Dad. I'm going to find a job." "Did he take the house?" "Yes." "The savings?" "Yes." "Did he hurt you?" The voice dropped an octave, becoming dangerously quiet. "Not physically," Lydia stammered. "But he laughed, Dad. In court. He laughed at me. He said I was an investment that didn't pay off." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, a silence that felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. "Liddy," Arthur said finally, "do you remember when you were 6 and that boy pushed you off the swing set?" "Dad, that was 30 years ago. Do you remember what I told you?" "You told me to get back up." "I told you to get back up," Arthur corrected, "and then I told you to wait. I told you that anger is a fire that burns you out, but patience is a river that cuts through stone." "I don't have time for patience, Dad. I have $12. "You have more than that," Arthur said. "You have your name, Holloway. That name doesn't mean anything in New York, Dad. It means mechanic's daughter." "It means more than you think," Arthur said. "Listen to me carefully, Liddy. I'm coming to the city." "No, Dad, please," Lydia panicked. "You can't come here. Grant, he has security. He has restraining orders. If you show up in your old truck, he'll just mock you. I can't handle him hurting you too." "I'm not coming in the truck," Arthur said. "And I'm not coming to fight him. I'm coming to do business." "Business? What business?" "The business of teaching a lesson," Arthur said. "Meet me tomorrow at 9 a.m. at the Plaza Hotel." The plaza. Dad, a coffee there costs more than your weekly grocery budget. Just be there, Liddy, and wear something nice. I don't have anything nice. He kept my clothes. Then come as you are, Arthur said. The clothes don't make the person. The spine does. I'll see you tomorrow. The line went dead. Lydia stared at the phone. She felt a strange mixture of confusion and dread. Her father was a good man, a hard worker who had spent 40 years fixing tractors and sedans in a small garage. What could he possibly do against a man like Grant Sterling? Grant was a shark. Arthur was a teddy bear with grease under his fingernails. She didn't know it then, but she was wrong about her father. She knew the man who raised her, the man who fixed bikes and grilled burgers. She didn't know the man he was before she was born. She didn't know why he had moved to rural Pennsylvania in 1985. She didn't know why he never talked about his own parents. She was about to find out. The next morning, Grant Sterling was in the boardroom of Sterling Dynamics, pacing like a caged tiger. "Where is he?" Grant barked at his secretary. "Mr. Arthur from Blackwood Enterprises was supposed to be here 10 minutes ago." "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling," the secretary stammered. "His office called. They said he's running on his own time." "His own time? Do they know who I am?" Grant slammed his hand on the mahogany table. "I'm the CEO of this company. I don't wait for people." Jessica, sitting at the end of the table, checked her reflection in her compact mirror. "Relax, Grant. Power move. He's making you wait to see if you crack. Don't crack." "I'm not cracking," Grant hissed. "I just want this deal signed. The board is breathing down my neck about the quarterly losses. If Blackwood doesn't inject capital by Friday, we miss payroll." "We won't miss payroll," Tom, the CFO, said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "But, Grant, did you look into Blackwood? Like, really look into them?" "I told you they're a private equity firm," Grant dismissed him. "They have billions in assets. That's all I need to know." "Yeah, but," Tom hesitated. "I ran a background check on the name Arthur associated with Blackwood. Nothing comes up. No LinkedIn, no Forbes profile, no photos. It's like the guy doesn't exist." "His old money," Grant said. "Old money doesn't have Instagram, Tom. They have islands." Suddenly, the heavy double doors of the boardroom swung open. Grant straightened his tie, putting on his best winning smile. Ah, finally. But the smile froze on his face. Walking into the room was not a slick Wall Street shark in an Armani suit. It was Lydia. She looked out of place in the sleek, glass-walled office. She was wearing her jeans and the grey cardigan. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked terrified, clutching her purse with white knuckles. Grant's face turned red. "What the hell is she doing here?" He turned to the security guard standing by the door. "I thought I gave specific instructions that this woman was banned from the building." "I tried to stop them, sir," the guard said, looking pale. But what?" Grant roared. He marched toward Lydia. "You have some nerve showing up here. What do you want? Begging for more money? I told you get nothing. Get out before I have you arrested for trespassing." Lydia flinched, stepping back. "Grant, please, Get out!" Grant screamed, pointing at the door. "You are nothing. You are a parasite. Go back to the trailer park." "She's not going anywhere." The voice came from behind Lydia. It was deep, resonant, and carried an authority that instantly silenced the room. Stepping out from behind Lydia was an older man. He was wearing a suit, but it was clearly dated, a three-piece charcoal suit that looked like it was cut in the 1970s. It was clean, but old. He wore a flat cap, which he slowly removed to reveal a head of thick, silver hair. His face was weathered, lined with decades of sun and hard work, but his eyes were bright blue and piercingly sharp. It was Arthur Halloway, Lydia's father, the mechanic. Grant stared at him for a second, then burst out laughing. A cruel, incredulous laugh. "Oh, this is rich," Grant cackled, looking back at Jessica and Tom. "She brought her daddy. What are you going to do, old man? Hit me with a wrench? Change my oil?" Arthur didn't smile. He didn't frown. He just walked calmly past Grant, walked to the head of the table, Grant's seat, and sat down. The room went deadly silent. "Excuse me?" Grant said, his voice dropping. "That is my chair. Get up." Arthur placed his hands on the table. His knuckles were scarred, his fingernails short. He looked at Grant with an expression of mild boredom. "I don't think it is," Arthur said. "Security!" Grant yelled. "Get this senile old fool out of here." 2 security guards stepped forward, but before they could touch Arthur, the boardroom doors opened again. 4 men in dark suits walked in. They were massive, military-cut, wearing earpieces. They moved with a fluidity and precision that screamed special forces. They didn't look at Grant. They took positions at the 4 corners of the room, arms crossed. "Who are these people?" Jessica shrieked, standing up. "Grant, call the police!" "Sit down, Missy," Arthur said. He didn't raise his voice, but Jessica sat down immediately, as if her legs had given out. Grant looked at the men, then back at Arthur. "Who do you think you are? You're a mechanic from Pennsylvania. You fix tractors. You have no power here." Arthur reached into the inside pocket of his old suit jacket. He pulled out a folded document and tossed it onto the table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped right in front of Grant. "Read it," Arthur said. Grant looked at the paper. It was a contract. The header read, "Blackwood Enterprises, Acquisition Agreement." Grant's eyes widened. "What? How did you get this? This is the contract I'm supposed to sign with Mr. Arthur." "I am Mr. Arthur," the old man said. Grant blinked. No, you're Arthur Halloway. You're poor, Lydia told me. You live in a trailer." "I live in a trailer because I like it," Arthur said, leaning back. "It's quiet, the fishing is good, and it keeps people like you away." "This is a joke," Grant stammered. "Blackwood Enterprises is a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. You can't own it." "Open the last page," Arthur said. Grant flipped to the last page. There, under the signature line for the owner/chairman of Blackwood Enterprises, was a signature. Arthur V. Halloway. Grant felt the blood drain from his face. He looked at Tom. Tom was frantically typing on his laptop. "Grant!" Tom's voice was a high-pitched squeak. "I'm looking at the SEC filings again. I dug deeper into the shell companies. Blackwood is owned by a holding trust called the Halloway Group. It was founded in 1978. They own shipping lines, steel mills, and, oh my God, they own the bank that holds our debt." Grant's knees buckled. He grabbed the back of a chair to support himself. "You?" Grant whispered. "You are Blackwood." "I retired 20 years ago," Arthur said, his voice hard as granite. "I left the running of the business to my board. I wanted to raise my daughter away from the sharks, away from people who judge you by your wallet. I wanted her to find a man who loved her for who she was, not for her inheritance." Arthur stood up slowly. He walked over to Lydia, who was standing there, stunned, her hand over her mouth. He put a protective arm around her. "I thought she had found that man," Arthur said, looking at Grant with pure disgust. "I stayed silent. I stayed in my trailer. I let you think I was a nobody, because I wanted to see how you treated her when you thought she had nothing." Arthur took a step toward Grant. Grant flinched. "And you failed," Arthur said. You didn't just fail. You were cruel. You bragged about destroying her. You took her home. You took her pride. Arthur reached into his pocket and pulled out a cell phone. He pressed a button. Grant's voice filled the room, recorded from the restaurant 3 days ago. She was a stepping stone, and you don't carry the stepping stone with you when you reach the summit. The recording clicked off. You wanted to reach the summit, Grant? Arthur asked. Congratulations, you're there, and guess who owns the mountain? Grant couldn't speak. He looked at Jessica. She was staring at the table, refusing to make eye contact. He looked at his business partners. They were looking at Arthur with fear and respect. What do you want? Grant croaked. We can work this out. We can renegotiate. I'm still the best CEO for this company. Arthur smiled. It was a terrifying smile. That's the funny thing about my company, Arthur said. See, Blackwood just bought the majority share of your debt this morning, which means I can call in that debt immediately. Sterling Dynamics is insolvent as of... He checked his old wristwatch. 5 minutes ago. You can't do that, Grant screamed. You'll bankrupt the company. You'll lose money. I have plenty of money, Arthur shrugged. I can afford to lose a few million to teach a rat a lesson. He turned to Tom. Tom, isn't it? Yes, sir. Tom stuttered. You're fired, Arthur said. He pointed to the board members. You're all fired. Everyone who sat at that table and laughed at my daughter while she was crying is fired. He turned back to Grant. As for you, Grant, firing isn't enough. Arthur reached into his pocket again. He pulled out a piece of paper. It wasn't a contract. It was a photo. A grainy black and white photo of a younger Grant Sterling handing a thick envelope to a man in a trench coat. My investigators are very thorough, Arthur said. They found this, and they found the offshore accounts where you've been siphoning company funds to avoid taxes, and they found the emails where you bribed the zoning commissioner for your new warehouse. Grant stopped breathing. The FBI is in the lobby, Arthur said calmly. They're waiting for you. I suggest you run. But I don't think you'll get far. The silence in the boardroom following Arthur Halloway's declaration was heavy enough to crush a man, and Grant Sterling felt the weight of it pressing against his chest. The air conditioning hummed, a low drone that sounded like a flat line. The FBI, Grant repeated, his voice cracking. He looked at the heavy oak doors, half expecting them to burst open with agents in windbreakers. You're bluffing. You can't just snap your fingers and summon the feds. This is America, not a movie. Arthur slowly sat back down in the leather chair, Grant's chair, and laced his fingers together. You're right, Grant. It's not a movie. In a movie, the villain gets a monologue. In real life, the villain gets an audit. And I didn't summon them. Your CFO did. Grant's head whipped around to look at Tom. Tom, who had been his college roommate. Tom, who had helped him cook the books on the logistics expansion in 2021. Tom was currently staring at his shoes, his face the color of spoiled milk. Tom? Grant hissed. What did you do? I cut a deal, Grant, Tom whispered, refusing to meet his eyes. When the subpoena came from the SEC last week regarding the insider trading on the Blackwood merger rumors, I knew. I knew we were cooked. I have a wife. I have twins on the way. I couldn't go to prison for you. You traitor! Grant lunged across the table, his hands aiming for Tom's throat. But he never made it. One of the silent security guards moved with terrifying speed, intercepting Grant and twisting his arm behind his back. Grant yelped as his face was slammed onto the polished mahogany table, the same table where he had signed the order to liquidate Lydia's assets just days before. Easy, Arthur said, his voice calm. We don't want to bruise the merchandise before the mug shot. Lydia stepped forward. She was trembling, but her eyes were dry now. She looked down at the man who had been her husband, the man who had vowed to protect her, only to discard her the moment he tasted a hint of greater success. "Let him up," Lydia said softly. Arthur nodded to the guard. The guard released Grant, who scrambled back, straightening his jacket, trying to regain a shred of dignity. "Lydia," Grant panted, his eyes darting between her and her father. "Lydia, look at me. This is insane. Your father, he's confused. I didn't do anything illegal. Tom is lying to save his own skin. You know me. I'm a businessman. Sometimes we have to operate in the grey areas." "Grey areas?" Lydia asked. Her voice was stronger now. "Is that what you call it? When you moved our joint savings into a crypto account under Jessica's name? Was that a grey area?" Grant froze. He looked at Jessica. Jessica was standing by the window, clutching her Prada bag. She looked bored. "You knew?" Grant whispered. "We know everything, Grant," Arthur interrupted. "See, when you marry a Halloway, you don't just marry a girl, you marry a legacy. I didn't intervene in your marriage because Lydia asked me not to. She wanted to be independent. She wanted to love you without my money clouding things. But the moment you filed for divorce, the moment you tried to destroy my little girl—" Arthur leaned forward, his blue eyes icy. "That's when I authorized the audit. That's when I bought the bank that holds your mortgage. That's when I bought the lease on your precious penthouse. And that's when I found out about the offshore accounts in the Caymans." "I can explain," Grant stammered. "It was tax optimization." "It was embezzlement," Arthur corrected. "Stealing from shareholders, stealing from the pension fund." "The pension fund?" Lydia gasped. "Grant, the workers? The drivers?" "They're just drivers, Lydia," Grant snapped, his arrogance flaring up one last time. "They're expendable. I built this company. I deserve the rewards." "And that," Arthur said, standing up, "is why you will never be a king. You think a king eats while his soldiers starve. A real king eats last." Arthur pulled a folded newspaper from his pocket and tossed it to Grant. It was an early edition of the Wall Street Journal. The headline screamed in bold black letters, "Sterling Dynamics, CEO implicated in massive fraud scheme. Stock plummets 80%. "It's over, Grant," Arthur said. "The news broke 10 minutes ago. Your assets are frozen. Your credit cards are dead. Your reputation is ash." Grant looked at his phone. It was vibrating incessantly. Notifications were flooding in. Calls from investors, calls from the press, calls from the bank. He looked at Jessica. "Jess, we need to go. We need to get to the airport. I have the stash in Zurich. If we leave now—" Jessica laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. "We?" she asked. Grant blinked. "Yes. Us. We're a team." Jessica opened her purse and pulled out a pair of sunglasses. She slid them onto her face, hiding her eyes. "Grant, honey, I was with you because you were a winner. I don't date losers, and I certainly don't date felons." "But I left Lydia for you. I gave you the diamond bracelet, the apartment." "The bracelet was cubic zirconia," Jessica said, curling her lip. "I had it appraised yesterday. You're cheap, Grant. And the apartment. The lease is in my name, but you paid the rent. And since your accounts are frozen, I suspect the landlord will be kicking me out soon. So I have to go find a new sponsor." She turned to Lydia. "No hard feelings, sweetie. It's just business." Jessica walked out of the room without looking back. Grant stood there, alone in the middle of the room. His allies were gone. His money was gone. His pride was stripping away like paint in a fire. "Get out of my building," Arthur said quietly. "But the FBI," Grant whispered. "They're waiting outside," Arthur said. I told them I wanted 10 minutes to terminate your employment personally. Your 10 minutes are up." Grant looked at Lydia one last time. He saw no hate in her eyes, only pity. And that hurt worse than the hate. He turned and walked toward the door. His legs felt like lead. As he reached the handle, he heard Arthur's voice one last time. "Oh, and Grant?" Grant turned. "Leave the watch," Arthur said. "Sterling Dynamics property, bought with company funds." Grant looked at the Rolex Daytona on his wrist, the symbol of his success. Slowly, with shaking hands, he unclasped it and laid it on the table. He walked out into the hallway. The elevator ride down seemed to take a lifetime. When the doors opened to the lobby, the flashes of cameras blinded him. Grant didn't stop for the FBI. Panic, primal and irrational, seized him. When he saw the agent standing near the reception desk, talking to the head of security, he bolted. He shoulder-checked a courier, sprinted through the revolving side door, and burst out onto 6th Avenue. "Mr. Sterling, stop!" He didn't listen. He ran. He ran until his lungs burned, and his bespoke Italian leather shoes blistered his heels. He dove into a subway station, vaulting the turnstile, ignoring the shouts of the station agent. He squeezed onto a crowded train just as the doors hissed shut. He slumped against the cold metal door, gasping for air. People stared at him. A man in a torn $3,000 suit, sweating profusely, looking like a maniac. He checked his pockets. He had his phone, a wallet with useless credit cards, and $40 in cash. "Think, Grant, think," he told himself. "The Zurich account is inaccessible digitally, but I have the physical key to the safety deposit box in Jersey. If I can get there, if I can get the diamonds." He had a bug-out bag, hidden in a storage unit in Newark. A fake passport, some gold coins, a burner phone. He had set it up years ago, just in case. He never thought he'd actually need it. He got off the train in New Jersey, the sky turning a bruised purple as evening set in. He hailed a cab, offering the driver his last $40 to take him to the storage facility. The facility was a grim, concrete block surrounded by barbed wire. Grant punched in his code at the gate. "Access denied." He tried again. "Access denied." "No," Grant whimpered. No. He went to the manager's office. A burly man with a thick mustache looked up from a TV dinner. "I can't get in," Grant said, trying to sound authoritative despite his appearance. "Unit 404. Grant Sterling." The manager typed on his computer. He let out a low whistle. "Unit 404. Yeah, that unit was seized this morning." "Seized? By who?" "Police warrant, and a private reclamation crew. Said something about proceeds of crime. They took everything, even the shelving." Grant stumbled back out into the night. Arthur. It had to be Arthur. The old man hadn't just audited the company. He had dissected Grant's entire life. He had found the storage unit. He had found the safety nets. Grant began to walk. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he couldn't stop. If he stopped, the reality would catch him. He walked for hours. It began to rain, a cold, stinging rain that soaked his suit and plastered his hair to his skull. He found himself in a neighborhood he didn't recognize, full of boarded-up windows and flickering streetlights. He was hungry, he was thirsty, and he was completely alone. He spotted a payphone near a gas station. He didn't even know they still existed. He had no coins. He went into the gas station. "Please," he said to the attendant, a teenager who didn't look up from his phone. "I need to make a call. It's an emergency." "Phone's outside," the kid mumbled. "I don't have change. Can I trade you?" Grant pulled off his cufflinks. They were gold, monogrammed. "These are worth $500. The kid looked at them, then at Grant. He smirked. "I'll give you a quarter." "A quarter? Are you insane?" Take it or leave it, pal. You look like you stole 'em anyway. Grant snatched the quarter, fighting the urge to scream. He went to the payphone. Who could he call? Jessica was gone. Tom was a traitor. His parents were dead. He dialed the only number he knew by heart, a number he hadn't dialed in 5 years, Lydia's old cell number. He prayed she hadn't changed it. It rang, and rang. "Hello?" Lydia's voice. "Lydia," Grant sobbed into the receiver. "Lydia, please, you have to help me." There was a pause. "Grant? Where are you?" "I don't know. New Jersey, I think." "Lydia, they took everything. The storage unit. The accounts. I have nothing. I'm wet. I'm cold. Please, I'm your husband." "Ex-husband," Lydia corrected. Her voice wasn't angry, but it was distant, like she was speaking to a stranger. "Lydia, don't do this. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll give it all back. Just call your father off. Tell him to stop." "I can't stop him, Grant," Lydia said. "And you can't give it back. You can't give back the 5 years I wasted trying to make you happy. You can't give back the dignity you stole from me in that courtroom." "I was stressed," Grant yelled. "I was building a future for us." "No," Lydia said. "You were building a monument to yourself, and now you're buried under it. Lydia, I'm begging you. Send a car, send money, anything." "Grant," she said softly, "do you remember when I asked you for the photo albums? My mother's photos?" "Yes, I remember. You told me you burned them. I lied. I didn't burn them. They're in the attic of the Hamptons house. I just said that to hurt you." "I know," Lydia said. "I found them. Dad bought the Hamptons house back this afternoon. We're there now. We're looking at the pictures. We're having dinner." The image hit Grant like a physical blow. Lydia, warm and safe in the house he had bought, eating dinner with her billionaire father, while he stood in the rain at a gas station. "Grant," Lydia said, "stop running. It's over. Turn yourself in. It's the only way you'll get a bed to sleep in tonight." "Lydia." Click. The line went dead. Grant dropped the receiver. It swung back and forth on its metal cord. He slid down the side of the phone booth until he was sitting on the greasy concrete. He pulled his knees to his chest. The great Grant Sterling, the king of logistics. A police cruiser turned the corner, its lights flashing silently. It rolled slowly toward the gas station. Grant didn't run this time. He didn't have the energy. He just raised his hands, closed his eyes, and let the rain wash away the last of his arrogance. The trial of Grant Sterling was the social event of the season in New York City, though not in the way Grant had ever fantasized. He had always imagined being in the papers for a record-breaking merger or a philanthropic gala. Instead, he was the face of corporate greed. The courtroom was packed every day. Strangers came just to see the man who had fallen so far. Grant sat at the defendant's table wearing a cheap suit provided by his public defender. His assets had been totally frozen, seized to pay back the creditors and the pension fund. He couldn't afford a dream team. He was stuck with an overworked lawyer named Mr. Henderson, who smelled of stale tobacco and seemed resigned to defeat before the opening statements even began. Arthur Halloway did not attend the trial. He deemed it a waste of his time. But Lydia was there. She came every day, sitting in the back row. She didn't glare. She didn't smile. She just watched. She wore new clothes now, sharp blazers, elegant scarves. She looked like a woman who had found her spine. The testimony was brutal. Tom took the stand and sang like a canary. He detailed the fake invoices, the bribed zoning officials, the shell companies set up to hide losses. He played the audio recordings of Grant laughing about screwing the little guy. Then came the character witnesses, or rather, the lack thereof. When the prosecution asked if there was anyone to speak on Grant's behalf, the room was silent. His friends from the country club had deleted his number. His business partners were busy distancing themselves, claiming they were victims too. Jessica had vanished to Europe with a new beau, a 70-year-old oil tycoon. Grant took the stand in his own defense. It was a disaster. He tried to charm the jury, tried to use the buzzwords that worked in boardrooms. Synergy, optimization, market forces. But the jury wasn't a board of directors. They were regular people, a teacher, a plumber, a nurse. They looked at Grant and saw a man who thought he was better than them. Mr. Sterling, the prosecutor, a sharp woman named D.A. Reynolds, asked, "Is it true that on the night of your divorce, you spent $5,000 on champagne while your wife had $12 in her bank account?" "It was a celebration," Grant said defensively. "I earned that money." "And did you earn the money you took from the driver's pension fund, the money meant for their retirements?" "That was a temporary loan. I intended to pay it back." "With what? The profits from the merger that never happened?" Grant had no answer. The verdict came back in 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: fraud, embezzlement, racketeering. When the Judge Harrison, a stern man with no patience for white-collar criminals, read the sentence, Grant held his breath. "Mr. Sterling, you have lived a life of extraordinary privilege," Judge Harrison said, looking over his spectacles. "You used that privilege to prey on those you deemed beneath you. You treated people as disposable assets. You showed no remorse, only regret that you were caught." The gavel raised. "I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison, with a restitution order of $25 million. 15 years. Grant's legs gave out. The bailiff had to hold him up. He looked back at the gallery, searching for anyone who cared. He locked eyes with Lydia. She stood up. For a moment, Grant thought she might say something, might shout out that she forgave him, that she would wait. But she just nodded, a slow, final acknowledgement. She turned around and walked out of the courtroom, the heavy wooden doors closing behind her with a sound like a tomb sealing shut. The next few months were a blur of misery. Rikers Island while waiting for transfer, then a medium security facility in upstate New York. Grant Sterling, the man who only wore silk, now wore scratchy orange cotton. The man who ate at Le Bernardin now ate mystery meat on a plastic tray. But the worst part wasn't the food or the clothes. It was the irrelevance. In prison, nobody cared about his stock portfolio. Nobody cared that he used to have a driver. He was just inmate 8940. He was bottom of the food chain. He tried to organize the other inmates, tried to offer consulting on their commissary trades. They laughed at him. One of them, a massive man named Tiny, simply took Grant's dessert cup every day for a month until Grant learned to stop talking. One day, 6 months into his sentence, a guard called his name. "Sterling, visitor." Grant's heart leapt. An appeal? A lawyer? Maybe Tom had recanted. He was led to the visitation room. He sat behind the thick glass partition. On the other side sat Arthur Halloway. The old man looked the same. Calm, weathered, powerful. He picked up the phone receiver. Grant picked up his. "What do you want? Haven't you done enough?" "I didn't do this to you, Grant," Arthur said. "You did this. I just turned on the lights." "Why are you here? To gloat?" "No," Arthur said. "I'm here to give you something." He held up a piece of paper to the glass. It was a receipt. "What is that?" Grant squinted. "It's a receipt for the debt," Arthur said. "I liquidated Sterling Dynamics. I sold off the assets. I paid back the pension fund. Every single driver got their money back. I paid back the creditors." "You sold my company." It wasn't your company anymore. It was a crime scene. But yes, it's gone. The name Sterling is gone. The building has been renamed. It's the Halloway Center for Vocational Training now. Grant felt a tear slide down his cheek. My legacy. Your legacy is a warning, Arthur said sternly. But I'm not a cruel man, Grant. Not like you. I paid the restitution order, the $25 million. Grant's eyes widened. You paid my fine? I did. Why? Does that mean I can get out? No. Arthur shook his head. You still have to serve your time. You committed the crimes. But when you get out, in 10 years, maybe 8 with good behavior, you won't have that debt hanging over you. You'll start at 0. Not negative $25 million. 0. Grant couldn't understand. Why would you do that? After everything I did to Lydia? Because Lydia asked me to, Arthur said. She said she didn't want you to starve when you got out. She said she wanted you to have a chance to be a human being. She has more grace in her little finger than you have in your whole body. Arthur stood up to leave. Wait, Grant cried. How is she? Is she happy? Arthur paused. He looked at Grant with a strange expression. Not quite pity, but something close. She's happy, Grant. She's running the foundation. She's meeting people. People who appreciate her. She's finally blooming. Arthur hung up the phone. Goodbye, Grant. Learn something in here. Grant watched the old man walk away. For the first time in his life, Grant Sterling didn't feel anger. He didn't feel the need for revenge. He felt a crushing, overwhelming sense of gratitude mixed with regret. He put his head in his hands and wept. 8 years later. The early morning sun hit the pavement of the used car lot in Queens. It was a small lot, filled with Honda Civics and Toyota Camrys. Bunting flapped in the wind. A man in a blue polo shirt was scrubbing the windshield of a 2015 Ford Focus. His hair was grey now, thinning at the top. His face was lined with deep creases. He moved with a humble efficiency. It was Grant. He had been released 3 months ago on parole. The world had changed. Phones were different, cars were electric, and nobody remembered the name Grant Sterling. He had applied for corporate jobs, consulting gigs, even sales roles. But the background check always came back the same. Felony fraud. No one would hire him. No one except a man named Mr. Russo, who owned this small lot. Mr. Russo didn't care about the past, as long as Grant showed up on time and didn't steal the pens. "Grant!" Russo yelled from the office. "Customer on the lot. Go help him." "Yes, boss," Grant said. He put down his rag and wiped his hands on his pants. He walked toward the couple looking at a minivan. He put on a smile, not the shark smile of his youth, but a genuine tired smile of a man trying to earn a commission to pay his rent in a shared basement apartment. "Good morning," Grant said, looking for something reliable for the family. He spent an hour with them. He was patient. He didn't push. He listened to their needs. He checked the engine for them, pointing out a worn belt that should be replaced, even though it might cost him the sale. "You're an honest guy," the husband said, shaking Grant's hand. "We'll take it." Grant felt a warmth in his chest, a small, quiet victory. "Thank you. Let's go do the paperwork." As he walked back to the office, a sleek, black town car pulled up to the curb. Grant froze. Old habits died hard. He recognized the car. It was expensive. The rear window rolled down. Grant's breath caught in his throat. It was Lydia. She looked radiant. She was older, yes, but she carried herself with an elegance that was breathtaking. She wore a simple white coat. Beside her, in a car seat, was a toddler. And next to her, holding her hand, was a man. A kind-looking man with glasses. Lydia saw Grant. Grant stood there, holding the clipboard, freezing in his cheap polo shirt. He wanted to run. He wanted to hide. He was ashamed of what he had become, yet proud that he was earning an honest living. Lydia didn't look away. She didn't look at him with scorn. She looked at him with a soft, distant peace. She nodded. Just once. A recognition of his existence, a recognition that the debt was paid. She said something to the driver, and the window rolled up. The car pulled away, merging into the traffic, disappearing into the city. Grant stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space where the car had been. "Hey, Grant, you coming with those papers?" Rousseau yelled. Grant blinked. He looked around at the dusty lot, the bunting, the old cars. This was his life now. It wasn't the life of a king. It wasn't the life of a billionaire. But it was his life. And for the first time, he was living it honestly. "Coming, boss," Grant called back. He turned and walked back to the office, the ghost of the man he used to be, finally fading away into the asphalt, leaving behind just a man, doing his job. Grant Sterling spent his life chasing power, thinking that money made him a giant. But in the end, it was a mechanic in a faded suit who showed him what true power looks like. Arthur Halloway didn't just have money. He had loyalty, patience, and love for his daughter. Grant learned the hard way that when you climb to the top by stepping on people, you're only building a higher platform to fall from. He lost the millions, but in that used car lot, washing windows, he might have finally found his soul. If you enjoyed this story of karma and redemption, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. And tell me in the comments, do you think Grant deserved a second chance, or should he have rotted in prison? I'll be reading your replies. See you in the next video. 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 You in the next.
But now there's factions of people go, oh no, we got it. We don't like it. We've changed our mind. It wasn't going well for us. We don't like free speech anymore. People who want free speech, they only want free speech so they can go around saying awful things, which just isn't true. And even if it was, the good thing about free speech is people can say awful things back. It's a really good system, right? And you can't say anything under the laws of free speech. That's a total misconception. There are loads of caveats to free speech, all of which I agree with, actually. You can't incite violence. Good rule. You can't slander people. Good rule. You can't libel people, you know? Fascinating fact about libel law. You can't libel the dead. So I could stand here and say, Gandhi used to take it up the arse. If I wanted. Which I do. But free speech is the most important human right there is. It's the right from which all other rights come. Without free speech, you couldn't have human rights, you know, and we've got free speech, in theory, in this country, for a little while longer. We can criticise the government, we can criticise the police, but we should give props to a country that allows us to do that, because we're the envy of some countries. In some countries, you criticise the police, you get beaten up, or worse. You criticise the government, you can be thrown in jail for life, you know. So they flee their oppression, quite rightly. You know, so would you. They flee their oppression, and they come here, they go, we want to come to England. We go, why? They go, free speech. We go, come on in, welcome. What are you going to do now? We're going to go on a march. What are you going to say? How shit England is. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you. That is their right. Have a great show. And as I was leaving, I saw one of the other lawyers lean in and show this head lawyer his iPhone, and the head lawyer went, oh yeah. He went, oh sorry Ricky, can you come back a minute? Right, so I'm there, I went, yeah. So he had the phone there. They'd looked up the word minge. I thought I'd gotten away with it, right? So it's now like I'm getting told off. And the head lawyer said, now it says here that the word minge is a derogatory term for female genitalia. I went, well, yeah, it's a slang word for vagina in England. You don't even use it here, do you? He went, no, we don't, but we go out around the world, and with due diligence, now we know it's derogatory, we'll have to bleep that word live. I went, don't bleep the word, like, because people at home won't know what I've said. It'll ruin the... I said, it's literally the punchline. He said, if it's derogatory, I have to... I said, well, what word could I use that you wouldn't bleep? And he went, well, you could say vagina. I went, I'm not saying vagina, right? Nothing funny about it. It's so clinical. I was thinking, Judy Dench at home going, why is he talking about my actual vagina, right? I said, minge isn't like that. It's like, it's not so specific, because vagina's so... Where's your vagina? There, right? Where's your minge? There. It's like... Then one of the younger lawyers went, what about box? I went, I'm not fucking saying box, mate, right? So much for looking at your own box. Right? I said, minge is perfect. I said, people won't know what... If they're American, they won't know it. I said, it's not offensive. It's like... I said, kids use the word in England. Right? They weren't having it. So I said, what about flange? Right? So they looked up the word flange, right? And he went, well, that'd just be confusing, because in America, a flange is a part of a sink unit. I went, oh, well, I said, please let me say minge and don't bleep it. I was really rooting for minge. Right? It was like 12 Angry Men. I go, no one's leaving till I can say minge. Right? And after about 10 minutes, I wore them down. Whatever, said, oh, that won't work. So I was going, please. I said, I'll write them. You won't get any complaints and all this sort of... And eventually, the head lawyer went, OK, you can say minge. I went, and you won't bleep it. He went, no, we won't bleep it. I went, you promise? He went, yes. And I left. I knew they would. And they fucking did, right? So, when I said minge, I pointed. Oh, why do you like London so much, Rick? Because you get a round of applause for not shitting yourself. Right. But that's the next phase now. I reckon it's the next 10 years that I will. But as of now, my arsehole has never let me down. Very underrated, the human arsehole. Everyone goes, oh, the human brain, the greatest computer known to man. All the human liver can regenerate itself. Your arsehole is working 24/7. Even when you're asleep, it's like that. You're not coming out. You're not coming out. You're not coming out. Nope. You're not coming out. And you're not coming in. Because it's like a sewer in there, isn't it? But you've got a lovely little manhole cover. Think of that in real life. Walking along a pavement, it's lovely pavement. If that burst, and you know what's in a sewer, don't you? Piss and shit and cum and dead goldfish and fetuses. In China, just the girl ones. Relax. I'm at that age now as well, because I'm in entertainment. People say, oh, you can have a facelift. I go, no. Have you seen facelifts? They're still just that. Like that, you know what I mean? You go to the doctor, and the doctor goes, do you want to look old or Chinese? You know, it's like... Nothing wrong with looking Chinese if you're Chinese. If you're not Chinese, it's a bit weird. It's offensive. But why is that allowed? You're not allowed to black up. It was considered a good thing to swap ideas with other cultures, with other nations, to share things with other races, to assimilate. It was the opposite of racist. Now it's racist. Gwen Stefani got in trouble in her last video because she had her blonde hair in dreadlocks. People go, no, black people invented dreadlocks, you can't have them, you're white, that's racist. Jamie Oliver got in trouble when he put out authentic jerk chicken recipe. People go, no, black people invented that, you can't have it, you're white, that's racist. Now, black people, they use the N-word, don't they? We invented that. That's the one, isn't it? That's the one. Listen, I know white people are the worst. I know that. That's why no one likes a fucking white middle-aged man anymore until we need a boiler fixing. Then it's Get the bald bloke round now. Critical race theory, have you heard of that? Being taught in schools now, particularly in trendy areas like LA, right? Just like 5-year-old kids and 6-year-old kids. If you haven't heard it, in a nutshell, critical race theory says that all white people are racist. It says that we're born racist and we continue to be racist because we're affording the privilege of a racist society set up by our forefathers, okay? So basically, all white people are racist and there's nothing we can do about it, which is a relief.